Athletor Podcast, back again. Neil, thank you so much, Coach. I really do appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, I'm super happy to, be here. I see some of the, snippets on social media and some of the guys you brought on. So excited to come on and share a little bit with you and talk about wrestling.
Let's talk about wrestling. You said it right off the bat, man. We are living in a wrestling world without John W. Smith as of this past week. What does that look like? I know you wrestled for the man. I know you're pretty close with him. What does that look like to you? What kind of world are we living in?
I mean, I don't know where to start on that. Like I have a lot of feelings and emotions about it, and just not. I just didn't think it was ever going to come, even though like there's been rumblings and people talk, and I'm like, you can't break John. You can't beat him.
Mm.
And I just I'm super happy for him. I think that's the first. I got a lot of joy for him because going out on your own terms is really hard to do. Like some of
Almost
the
impossible in this sport. I
right.
mean,
I mean, some of the greatest coaches have to go out for the worst scenarios. And
mhm.
I was just unbelievably happy he got to do on his terms. And I don't know what the world's going to do, without John's little awesome quirkiness, and uh, his Johnisms. And I mean, he's just a national treasure when it comes to wrestling. And I don't think we would be wrestling the way that we're wrestling today without John Smith. I mean, no one really wrestled below the knee. Nobody, approached wrestling like he did. And there was a lot of people that were really good, but none like John Smith. And that's just an incredible thing to think about.
It's look, you said you can't beat John. I would tend to agree with you. But I think the world that we're living in, that includes social media and includes NIL, I think it did a number on him. And if anyone asks me, I would probably say that was the number one thing that led to this decision that he made. I don't know if I'm off. I don't talk to the guy, but something tells me that that's a good reason
Yeah.
for the decision that was made. Would you agree with that?
I would say that, I'm not gonna put words in his mouth. I think that had it played a small portion. Um, I think he's been doing this for a long time. And I think the one thing that no one's really talking about is, the weight of the orange on your back, and um the pressure that comes with that and the responsibility that I know he felt and that, that program made him. But I also disagree with him. Like he made the program. Like
Yeah, he did say that it made him all day yesterday, but man, it's hard to not like they're just synonymous with one another. And so much so that like, yeah, Gallagher, I get it,
yeah.
but it's John W. for sure. I
I
agree.
mean, you start with Gallagher and you look at, he created college wrestling, and then you go to you go all the way up to Tommy Chesborough and the way that they wrestled, and or Myron Roderick and the things that he brought to the sport, and then Chesborough, but then John Smith changed how wrestling was as a whole, and you can't say that the Oklahoma State is today what it is without John Smith. So
Hmm. So I know you probably won't answer this next question, but does Coleman get the job?
I think Coleman's in a great position to get the job. I don't know what their process is, going to look like. I think he's, done some wonderful things, and I'm not trying to give you the coach answer, but you're asking me to tell you what Chad Weiberg thinks. I don't know, but I
That's
think
fair. No, no, no. That's
I think
that's
he's in a pretty good
that's
spot.
100% fair. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. You see online people going, It's Coleman or we riot. And that seems to be the sentiment of a lot. And look, I don't want to spend the entire hour with you on Oklahoma State wrestling because you are far bigger than that right now. You know, but I do want to say that does it have to be a cowboy?
Man, they have never not. Well, I guess that they have, but I
Mhm.
think that it has to be someone who can come in and bring life and revamp and be Oklahoma State's always been ahead of the curve. When we're our
Mhm.
most successful, we're ahead of the curve. We're starting wrestling, we're changing wrestling. I mean, the way Yojo Utaki wrestled that helped shape to get to where John was. You have
Mhm.
guys like Myron Roderick who had a certain type of wrestling style that changed wrestling, that brought about the hard wrestling, the hand fighting, and then you have Jose who you can say what he wants, but he helped John develop into who he is in a whole different way. Um, and now you had John Smith who changed wrestling. I think it has to be someone who's innovative enough to come in and help shift the new generation of where wrestling's coming. We have always been at the forefront. We have always been the team that was changing and developing, and we don't have that right now. And I think that's who it has to be. Does it have to be a cowboy? No. Is it going to be a cowboy? Most likely.
All right. All right. That is that. Let me tell you something. You're really good at not giving me coach answers. I appreciate that, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, I
Because
try hard.
God,
I don't
no,
like that. There's a time for coach answers and there's a time for not, and I don't feel like that my answer takes away from anybody or harms anybody.
no.
And I think that's the answer that is the truthful
And
answer.
it's honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's freaking great, man. I do appreciate it. All right, let's talk Little Rock. Holy smokes. You got a monkey off your back right now or what?
Yeah. I mean, you accomplish something for the first time and it shows other people it can be done. And it's just a breath of fresh air. I think that we all knew and felt for a couple years that we were it's like I said that about the last season we were probably 2.5 minutes away in so many different situations from winning 7 or 8 more duels, and we were just so close. And so I think that us getting over the hump as a whole was super positive, and it wasn't like we got two seniors on the podium and now we're like, where do you go now, right?
Great, great.
It's cool that I mean we did it, but the future is not bright. And so for us, I think that we set the tone for the future. We got some guys that are going to help grow this. They're going to bring more people in like them, and yeah, huge weight.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this. That's like one of the boxes that needs to be checked for new programs. When are you getting your first All-American? Um, before, let's try to think before this past NCAA tournament. Are you as a head coach, are you ever presently cognizant of that box not being checked? Like, is this a day in, day out like thought that, oh shit, we better get an All-American this year? Because if not, so and so is going to be pissed, or the administration or the donors or whatever. Is that something that you think about on a darn near daily basis?
I think that when I my first few years, I thought about it a lot more than I did the last couple. I think the
Okay.
first few years that I had high expectations, and I think that for the first time ever, I realized sometimes things do take time. Like you
Yeah.
can't just walk in and absolutely change the direction when you're starting something brand new because there is no direction, right? Like it's not like you're taking something in motion and redirecting it to a different area. You trying to get the ball moving, and I think after my first few years and only getting one guy to the national tournament was really hard for me. It was really, really hard for me not to just freak out and put my head through the wall. Like it was it was difficult. And um I think we really shifted our mindset and our perspective to stop worrying about all of those things and start being very much process oriented, very oriented in the things that are going to give us an identity as a team of who we're going to be, And we had those values and we had the things that were important to us. But when it came to on the mat things, we were trying really hard to say, okay, look, what wins? Let's be really good at them. And, we tried to narrow down on those. And that's when we started to see the direction shift. We started to see guys really start to figure it out, and the pressure came off of them. And this thought of being the first came off of them. And it was like, how do I come in every day and how do I get better at my skill and develop to where I can get to where I want to? And I think that's the what transpired over the last 5 years.
Yeah. You said creating an identity as a program. And Joel and I do a lot of these interviews with head coaches, and progress is a word that comes up constantly. Process, progress, that type of stuff. Identity is becoming a word that comes up almost every time, especially when we speak to head coaches. Number one, how important is it to define the Little Rock or whatever program's identity? But number two, and I think this is probably more important, how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's incredibly important. I think the best thing that we did was we set our moral values first. We set the values of like who we want to be, the things we want to stand for day one. Like we're not here just to compete to win. We're here to wrestle and live for something bigger than ourselves. And we really, really try to hammer that home with our guys. And we had that down. That was not as much of a struggle as develop an identity as a team when we compete on the mat, right?
Mm.
Because the reality is if you don't have that strong, foundation in your life, you're up and down, you're wishy-washy, right? Like we took 3 years establishing that in our guys to get the solid like, hey, look, here's who we are, and it's showing up in all your matches because you're not being consistent, right? And so I think it's super important. And number two is that it's important to start developing that identity of who you're going to be on the mat, because now you have who you are. Given an identity of who you want to be on the mat gives you more direction of where you need to go, right? Like I don't have to think about whether I'm going to get up and have the right thoughts and have the right choice, or the right priorities and the right habits, because I've already established that. Now it's time to move towards who am I going to be as a wrestler. And I think in the beginning we try to do too much. You know, we
What do you
try
mean by that? Just like overtraining or?
we were like, we're gonna win right now, and you got to have that. Like you can't not show up and have the thought that you're gonna be successful. But I think we pushed them hard. We tried to, you know, break them. We tried to establish them, and we needed that. But we were also trying to give them way too much skill and way too much technique and way too much direction that way. And I think that it just became apparent that we need to be really we need to be really good at a few things, and that's what we're going to do. And I think that then we came really solid at a few things, and that opened the door for us to grow, skill wise. So
Man, that's interesting. Now, who do you and your staff sit down and, after assessing, like, hey, something's got to change a little bit technically, tactically, on the mat stuff. And is this a decision of everyone on the team, or is it just the coaching staff that comes to the decision like, oh, we are seriously deficient in head hands defense? Or is it something that you just go, look, this is what we're doing, this direction that we're going, because otherwise we're not going to get anywhere?
yeah, yeah. Well, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to look at what's winning,
Mm,
right? And you got to look at what's successful, and you got to say, how does that how can we implement that in our team? I think a great example is the type of shot that you're hitting. You know, if you look at high crotches, they're not the most successful in the NCAA tournament when it comes to
mm,
statistics, right? Go behinds, single legs, double legs. That's where people are winning. So we're going to stop trying to shoot across the body. We're going to stop trying to fight that battle, and we're going to put pressure on people and go behind, right? Like that's what we're going to do first. And we kind of just started to identify the trends of wrestling, and I think
mm.
that it's important to do that. You got to identify the trends of wrestling, and you got to. I think good leaders can react and adjust. I think great leaders can look ahead of the curve and say what's coming and be way ahead of the competition on that. And I think we saw some things that we really wanted to be good at, that we saw wrestling was going and was kind of already there. And I think that was kind of the key moment for us. It was like we all got together as a staff and we're like, what are we seeing? What wins? Let's implement this, and then let's say what are the areas that we really struggled, and then we looked at it, and it was just glaringly obvious some of the things that we weren't doing enough of, right? And I don't think it was from a lack of effort. I think it was from a lack of attention and
Mm,
freedom to be you with this with a concept of how we're going to finish a single leg, right?
mm,
And how you get to the single leg to me is great, but we're all going to have some basic principles when we do get to the leg.
mm. That's interesting, man. That is interesting. Where did you find you were most deficient um, when you did that assessment?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we saw was we're pretty freaking tough. We got our heads kicked in and we kept coming back and fighting and nobody quit. And we were always really close. We were always right there. I think we were trying to give them too much information. We were trying to create them to where they had all the information they could possibly have to be successful. And we said, we need to rein that back. We need to focus on moving forward. When we're attacking our opponent, we're constantly getting an angle, attacking, angle, attacking. Here and there. I don't want to talk too much wrestling for those who are watching this.
No,
That's
let it no that look geek out, dude, all day,
okay.
all day. I
And
those people, if they can tune out if they don't listen, because this is for me. I don't
yeah,
give a shit. Go ahead.
yeah. And so the first thing is we're going to move forward and we're going to put pressure on people, and um, we're going to stop attacking the middle of the body. Like we're going to stop fighting them right up the middle. That's going to be a compliment to what we do. That's going to be like a dagger. That's going to be a sting. That's going to be a punch type attitude. If we do hit a hard double leg, we do hit a hard high crotch. Like it's after we've already made you move your feet and back up and take some bad shots, right? And then defense. Like I want it to be if you touch our leg, it is the longest 45 seconds of your life. And if you
Mhm.
get a takedown, it is the hardest takedown you have ever got on us in your life. And I think those two concepts right there. Oh, and I mean, I just say it this way: we're going to be absolute dogs on a wrist and on cradles. Like that's what we're going to do. And it would just
And you're
have to
talking about
be,
just in top position.
yeah, just in top, right?
Mhm.
And those are kind of the main things. I had a list that I'd written down, and there's definitely some more things in there I could talk about for a long time. But
Yeah, but let's go back to the defensive part because like everybody loves to sit and talk about what I'll say this just a small story is like I sat down with Jay Robinson about 20 years ago, and I just happened to be in the same coach's room as him for whatever, and he was holding court as J Rob does, and I got to sit down and talk to him about his coaching philosophy, and he said, "Well, pay close attention how you divide your practice, how you if you want to be uh, a a solid head hands baseline defense." Kind of program, and you're only spending 10 minutes a day in practice on that, are you really putting in that type of effort? Are you really prioritizing the defense? And I never really kind of looked at it in terms of like just time spent in the position. I always thought of it like, yeah, give them more, give them more, give them more, give them different ideas on how to move their hands on defense, give them different ideas on what angles they should have. And all of it's kind of bullshit because you just need to spend time in that position, right? So when you identify you're going to be like brick it up defense, what does that look like, and what changes did you make in your wrestling?
well, it starts with position. If you fix your position, you feel a lot more, right? And so I was a tyrant about position, and I just kind of was like, if we have great position and we move forward, the rest is going to happen. Like it's going to naturally just come along. It's going to progress. And so I think we really started with position, and then we were like, how do we get to the next best position once we get to a scenario, right? The guy's on my leg, I'm on his leg. What's the next best position that I need to be executing in? And I think that's where the genesis of the defense came about. Was we're going to have great position. The minute that we feel the pressure break, we're reacting, or you're in for a dogfight with our hips, right?
Mm.
And so I think we started there, and we became real tyrants about position, and it really helped change a lot of our guys' feels and understanding.
One of the things you mentioned, your first couple of years was there was lots of ups and downs. And, you said you needed to kind of bring consistency to how you compete. What does that process look like of going from a team that, you're seeing flashes of, oh, we could really have something here, to be able to consistently see or consistently compete at a high level?
Well, it starts with me, right? I got to be very emotionally consistent. I got to be physically consistent in the way that I carry myself. I got to be consistent in my thought process of what the game plan is that's going to make us successful, and not get caught up in trying to react to everything. And I think that's what I did. I was a really good reactor. I could solve a lot of problems really quick for now. When you're coming into the wrestling room and every time you compete, you're having to react to fix the things that you want, you're not really giving them the ability to get into a situation and adapt and adjust. You're simply saying, we sucked at that, we got to fix it. We fix it, and we eliminated the main things that we were trying to be good at. So I think it starts with me. And I think it starts with consistent language that you use. You've got to be very, very consistent in the communication that you're using. If you want to give guys the freedom to go out and develop, then you have to give them the freedom to not feel the pressure from you when things go wrong when you're training. Like
Mm.
like they have to understand that you don't lose, you lose when you don't go for it, right? Um and I think it starts there. And here's the thing about college athletics. It starts at the top no matter what. Period. And I'm not saying that like bragging on myself. I'm saying it like, if I don't put myself in check and I don't show up every day and make good choices of my thoughts and my habits and my priorities, it rolls right into my team. And my team can feel it, they know it, they understand it. And there's days where I have to walk in and be like, I can't be the guy today to bring the energy. Like, you got to be the guy, coach, and I need to be the guy that steps back, and I need to watch. I need to watch from 20,000 feet. I don't need to be the guy in the weeds. I just need to be the strong voice that makes sure everyone understands that we're going in the right direction. And so it starts with me.
Wow. That is a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned, because too many even coaches we've had on this podcast have just been like, nope, high energy all the time. That's me. I've got to go. Well, yeah, there are days where you come in and you're like, yeah, this is a grind for me too. And to have the wherewithal to dish it off to assistant coaches that are happy to take the ball and run with it. That's pretty awesome, Neil. I appreciate that, brother. So you're in a not very, but pretty unique situation in that you have started a Division I program from scratch. I hope that more coaches are in your position. Why? I would like to have more Division I programs. I think we're hopefully trending in that direction. What advice would you give? What checklist would you make for new coaches that are starting like Grant Lee, right? They're starting something in Texas, up out near west of Fort Worth. What would you say to Grant? What priorities would you make for him Like, okay, you better get this, this, and this in check before you even think about stepping on a mat.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing is J-Rob. I think it was one of his documentaries. He was, or maybe I heard him in a speech, but he said something to the effect of, as a young coach, it's important to have a strong moral compass. Okay, there's you, you can get lost, you can get swept up in this reality of you're a head coach, you're a Division I coach. That's a big deal. I'm one of 80, or one of 78 or whatever it is now. And you can kind of, falter. There's a lot of situations and a lot of conversations that, whether people mean to or not, they're testing you. Right? And you have to have a strong moral compass, and you have to stand up and say, okay, I'm not going to try to say the right thing. I'm going to be real, and people want to follow people who are real, not who are right. And I think that's first. Like, look, here's the thing. I understand that's how you feel, but that's not who we are, and that's not the direction we're going to go. That's a hard thing to say when you're new, because the next piece of advice is going to be, you got to have a strong message with a strong value system attached. That's not made up. That's not a sales pitch. That's who you are. And that
And
way,
who is that message going to? Just to the kids, to the donors, or is this going to everyone?
everybody, you tell as many people as you can, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is the direction we're going, this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to live and die by this, right? And like, these are our non-negotiables. And that message has to be strong, clear, concise, and consistent, and it has to be quick. You're going to lose someone's attention really quick if you're not 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Like, this is who we are, right? Um, value system, strong message. And then I would say in the beginning, you got to say yes to a lot. Like, you got to eat your humble pie when people think they want to, that they know more than you or whatever. And you got to say yes, thank you very much. Or you got to say yes to a lot of, uh, I'm not saying this about you, but a lot of random podcasts. And you got to say yes. Like, I got up in front of the whole basketball arena probably 8 different times and did Wrestling 101 in the middle of the basketball arena. I drug a section of a mat out there. I had rules. I had everything. I had kids in singlets, and people were laughing, obviously, because they'd never seen something like it. But you got to say yes, and you got to be willing to.
Are you talking about on your campus? You did that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? So
Yeah.
that people understand the rules, so that when they come, they're educated.
Yes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Wow, that's a great idea.
We called it Wrestling 101 with Coach Erisman.
Yeah, that's wild. Because I grew up in Jersey. Everyone knows what a wrestling match looks like. Everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I just take that for granted. That if I were to go like Grant out to wherever, Texas, maybe they'd never seen anything other than WWE. For
Yeah.
real. Like, never really thought about it that way. All right. So where did you goof the most your first 3 years? Because, like, it's great to say what you should do, but what mistakes did you make, you think, in your first couple years as a head coach?
I think, some of the first thoughts that come to mind, like, I think if I were really to sit down, I'd have to take a lot of time to think about that. But I think some of the first, just like raw organic thoughts are, I took kids that looked good on paper that I knew might not have fit our program. And I think it's about fit. It's about understanding your school, understanding what they are, and not trying to. I think the best way to say it is, don't fall in love with what a recruit or a kid could be. Fall in love with what he is. Because reality is, you got to be happy with what he is the day he steps on campus. And that might be the best he ever be, he ever is. And I think I had a lot of, but I think that was, I'm a pretty optimistic. Like, when I look at a situation, I look at the obstacles and I'm like, we can tackle those. Right. And I think that I was pretty hopeful for a lot of kids, and I was very wishful instead of factual, and saying, if I'm okay with what this kid is and he develops into what I believe he could be, I would have figured it out a lot sooner.
What type of red flags did you see as a recruiter that you looked past especially in your first couple of years?
Having to talk kids into it,
Mm,
like having to you get to the point and it's like a dog fight with other schools and they're giving you a lot of reasons of why they can't make the decision, you know.
mm,
Like I talked some kids into coming that were great human beings that just didn't fit, you know,
mm.
that might have been great wrestlers that didn't fit. And I think you set them up for failure when you do that. I just I believe I'm a big believer in fit. Like you got to fit the school, you got to fit the coach's personality, you got to fit, you know, the area. You got to understand the type of school you're getting into, and if you can't fit that, and here's another fit. Parents have to be very realistic about who their child is, and if there's some really really high unrealistic expectations outside of like he's going to be a national champion, but like, well, he never has, drank, he's never, experienced smoking weed, or he's
Mm,
never been around that. Like, there's a few select people in the world that haven't, right? And not everybody is is a great person, and that's okay. But as long as you're realistic, like, hey, look, my son, he's got a good heart. He's going to be a follower. You got to keep him consistent with the schedule. Then those are the flags I'm looking for because I
mm.
know what I'm getting into and I don't have to wade through 18 years of their mess that they didn't just want to tell the truth about. Right. So
Yeah.
those are all kind of red flags.
Man, I didn't think about that. Parents are he's a saint. Okay. Okay. All right.
Candidly, I never touched alcohol till I got to Oklahoma State,
Oh, there you
and
go.
that was the truth. So I understand, and I can look right through it and go,
You're
yeah,
full of
you're full of crap. Like that, come
it. You're
on, man.
full of
Right?
it.
Like
Right.
I didn't, and I know who I was, and I was so naive that I didn't even understand half the things you were talking about. And this kid's
Right.
laughing. It's a big
Right.
sign.
Right. That's fair. Okay. So that said, when you are on the recruiting trail now, and you say fit is probably the most important thing, and I I would agree with you. I mean, you know Pat Popolizio. He talks about it like you have to fit this, like you have to fit in this mold, and if you don't, well, this is just not the place for you. And so, what does the fit look like for a Little Rock wrestler? What do they have to? What boxes do they need to check?
Well, I think the first thing is like we're gonna check them with, hey, this is what our school is. Okay. We're 8,500 students. You're probably going to see 3,000 of those on a consistent basis. We're in the heart of Little Rock. Um, you're coming here. You wouldn't pick this school on a map. Okay. You're not going to say, oh, I live in PA. I want to go to Little Rock right there. Like if you weren't a wrestler. So you're coming here for a purpose, right? We don't have football. If you're looking for weekend fun, if you're looking for house parties left and right, like we don't have that. We're not that. We're a city school. Okay. Um, I think they got to understand the area. I think they got to understand the school of what they're getting into. So I'll just say understanding the school. I think the next thing that they got to understand is that this is a long-term vision. Okay. If you're looking for a place to come have short-term success and happen right now, we're not those guys. We're not going to come in. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to do it the easy way. You can win right away, and we've shown that, right? But these guys bought in. They bought into the process. They bought into, I'm going to live for something bigger than myself, which is, really the value system next, right? Who am I? What do I stand for? Wrestling can't be my identity because it breaks your heart. And then having good relationships. Like if you want to get to where you're going to be, it's going to require other people around you, and you got to be able to work with them and fight with them and compete against them and be okay with that process. And so those are a few of the things that really fit, in just people that are independent, that can
Wow.
independently get stuff done. If I have to stink and walk you to class, I'm not that person. I will show up at your class, but because that's my job and that's what I will do, and I will not fail at that. But you have to be a little bit of an independent motivator, and you have to be someone who understands this is what I got to do today, and I'm going to get up and just do it. And I think there's a lot of kids that can't do that.
Now, you've been at Little Rock for how long?
So 6 years as the head coach, 5 years competing.
Okay. Before that, you're at UNC. Before that, you're at Oklahoma State. So for those of you that don't know, Neil's been around the block.
I was at Stillwater High for a couple years too.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Do you find that over the course of your coaching career and high school, college, whatever, okay, do you find that finding those independent kids is becoming more difficult?
Yes.
Why?
How much time we got on this one? Parents are friends. Parents no longer raise and train kids up to leave. They raise and train them to stay home, to stay tight, to be friends with them. And I think that causes a lot of codependence. It causes a lot of lack of problem solving and a lack of understanding that the reality is one day you got to step out, you got to solve your own problems, you got to figure it out on your own, and the coach can only row that boat so far until it's your turn to finish it. And that's what I think is a huge problem today.
Can I tell you the number one phrase thrown around my house? Figure it out. Figure it out. You like he'll ask me a question. I'll look at him. I'll go, "You gonna make me Google that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Go ahead, bud. Like you got the same Googleator in your pocket as I do in mine. Figure it out. You figure it out." And here's what's really interesting, and I'll be completely honest about this. I have no doubt in my mind that within days of graduating high school, my son is out of this house. Like whether I want him to be or not is almost irrelevant. My daughter, though, we are kind of raising her to be more codependent, and I'm not happy about that, and I'm not proud of it. And there are extenuating circumstances that lead to that. But so I have both of them. I can see both, and I can see that he's far more socially healthy. If I'm going to be honest, and I think that is not a conversation that is easily brought up with other parents. However, as a coach, do you have to have that conversation often? Like, hey, do you think this kid's going to be okay 600 miles from home?
I mean, I definitely asked that because if you look at our roster, like we're in, I mean, this is not an exact number, so don't hold this against me. We're in 15, 20 different states. So,
Yeah.
You got to be comfortable coming from afar. And I think that, yeah, we do. We tell them, like, you got to be independent. Like, we're here. Like, we're going to have your back. We're never going to lie to you. And we're going to row this boat as far as we can until it's your turn to finish it. But if you think you're going to show up and you're going to want me living in your son's living room and holding his hand and feeding him and doing all that, like you're crazy. Like I got 40 of them, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you this much: we take care of your kid. We make sure that when they get here from day one, they know that if there's a problem, they can call us. Like I want to be the coach that when they get arrested and they're sitting in the back of a cop car, they're like, call coach. And we try to make that clear from the beginning. Like you make a mistake, it's okay. But the worst thing you can do is not communicate. And yeah, we have those conversations all the time.
Yeah, that said though, like I ain't gonna cut the weight for you, and I'm not gonna go to class for you. And man, these are really, I think they're conversations that are far more important at a place like Little Rock as opposed to Penn State. And I'll say that only because, look, let's be honest, right? Kale's going to get not only the best athlete, but he's also going to get the most motivated athlete on a pretty clear and consistent basis. But when you're trying to build something like you guys are, you had better make sure you you gamble on these kids. You gamble on kids a lot. And it's like, well, you better learn how to gamble with an educated mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's impressive to me what you've done, Neil. Joel, before we get moving on some other stuff, do you got anything else for Neil?
Yeah, I'm curious. We talk about Penn State and kind of the recruits that they look at, and their strategies as compared to smaller schools and upcoming programs. Does it sometimes feel like you're almost playing a different sport than them, and when it comes to recruiting?
I mean, yeah, you can say that, but dadgummit, we got Nasir Bailey, and he's a freaking big dog, and if
Mhm.
he calls just about any school, he's going to be able to go to it.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're playing a different game, but we didn't have back to back, top 15 and a top 25 recruiting class because we believed we were playing a different game, and I think that's a poor approach, and I think a lot of coaches do that. We just can't do that. I don't. I mean, obviously, I can say, well, I can't take a private plane to every competition because I can't afford it. That's true. But to say that I can't go sit in someone's home and get to build a relationship with them, I don't think that's true. I think that's false. I think that that's something we tell ourselves to be okay with not being Penn State. And I mean, I believe I can do it. I mean, I'll give you a funny example. My wife's smoking hot, and it's not because I'm good looking, right? And so I I went after it, and if it's something you want and it's something you want bad enough, you'll find a way.
You ain't the only one in this sport that outkicked their coverage. Trust me about that. So, what I want to get to some quick questions here, but real quick on the last one I have for you is what do you think the general wrestling public does not know about the University of Little Rock? What do they not know? What do you want? Like, if you could, um, just speak to the entire wrestling community one time and be like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but we are." What would it be?
Which direction do I want to go with this? That's
I'd say the money one if I were
right.
you, because
The the money one.
you guys are doing all right.
Yeah, I think that's an easy thing to say. Um, I want to attract people for the important things. And so what I'll say is you're in one of the most beautiful states in the country,
Mhm.
and you're surrounded by some incredibly loyal fans and people who have no idea what wrestling is, but they show up. And you get to be in a place that has the best of both worlds. You get to be in a place where you live in a metropolitan city, but it feels like a small town.
Mhm.
You can drive 5 miles and climb a mountain. You can be right here in the heart of the city and have every access that you need. And you get to do it at a place where no one else can say that they are like Little Rock. You are so unique. You are such your own. You get to bet on yourself and build your own house here and be a part of it for a long time to come because there's going to be a lot more first. And you get to be the person, even as a fan, that gets to help build their path to the top of the mountain. That when you get to the top and you look back and you see everybody else coming up the path, like you're like, I did that. I was a part of that. And that's very, very rare to say. Most people get to be a part of history, others get to create history.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, and by the way, for those of you like Arkansas is 100% one of the most beautiful, and y'all keep it a secret. Y'all just, you
Don't tell
guys,
nobody.
it's bizarre to me that like I'm like Hot Springs is dope. Little Rock
Yeah.
is dope. Like there's like some really incredible gems in Arkansas. There, most of my wife and I talk about like, maybe we scoot on that way once kids are out of school. But anyway, all right, let's get to some quick ones here. Don't think about these, just fire out from the mouth. What's the best wrestling shoe of all time, Coach Erisman?
I can't answer that.
Yes, you can.
um the John Smith, anything John Smith. How about that?
All right, fair enough. Well, then I'll go with the next one, and I have an idea of one of four. Has to be four, has to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Obviously, John.
John?
Just absolutely changed the game. Um, I mean, this is where I get into the weeds. This is where I really, really struggle to start adding people, not because they don't belong, but because there's a lot of people that belong,
Right.
belong. Like a
Sure.
Bruce Baumgartner belongs. I mean, holy smokes. Um, obviously, I think everyone will say Kale.
Mhm.
I think what JB has done has been unreal. And on a personal note, with JB, I competed against JB, and that's someone that he's represented himself and his family in such a way that he belongs on there just by who he is as a person, and
Just for being the ambassador of the sport. I
being
agree.
a huge ambassador. Like
Yeah.
he's helped changed, and there's a lot of older guys that really deserve a lot of credit. But my fourth is I think could change after this Olympics.
Mm.
I mean, there's some guys that deserve to be on there. I think David Taylor will eventually be
Dude, that is coming up
fourth.
more and more and more. He's getting better.
Yeah,
He's getting better.
yeah,
Like he's 30 something. He ain't like everyone talks about JB being 36. Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Except
He's
David's
32.
only like 2 years younger.
No. David was a freshman when I was a senior. JB's
So,
a year older than me, so he's 30. He should only be 32 years old ish.
all right, he's 32. So
So
4 years. Yeah, okay.
yeah. So now I know there's a lot of people that are going to be butchering me for that, but I think based on the margin of victory, the way that they've won, the amount that they've won, if you include everything that they've done, it's going to be really hard to match some of those things.
He's 30. So he was
For
born in 19. No, he's
1990, so he's
yeah,
33.
1990. He's 30
30,
December of
he
90.
turned, yeah, in December he turned 34.
Okay,
Yeah.
he's 33. I wasn't far off.
Okay. All right. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be, Coach Erisman?
How complicated it is to understand swimming.
Yes. Yes. I'm calling the Olympic team trials in like 3 days. Okay. Have you ever tried to explain Greco-Roman wrestling to somebody that's never seen Greco-Roman wrestling? Because it's impossible. You need an applied physics degree to do it.
Listen, I have several guys that won Fargo that have runner up in the world team trials. I don't know the rules. I can't keep up with them. I'm sorry. I don't
Too
dislike Greco.
much.
I don't dislike Greco, but I get out there and I'm like, if you're not freaking tough, then you're gonna lose because I don't know the rules. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And so I hire people who know Greco, and I will always help and support people who want to wrestle Greco, and I will get them the best training, and I will be the best coach I can be for them. But I'm not interested in it, and I'm sorry, and I don't, and I know I'm not supposed to say that, but it,
But you're honest about it. Like
but
what
it
are we going to
bores me.
stop?
It bores me. I'm
It's
sorry.
hard to watch. It's a tough watch right now. It's a tough watch, man.
Yeah.
All the good things that a step out did for freestyle, I think it killed Greco. I think it
Yeah.
killed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Like I got a lot of
Because
guys that are really good at Greco, and I will support them in every way. And I please hope you post this clip with the other clip that I just
yeah,
said,
no,
because I do love that my guys love to compete in Greco, but I'm not as into it as freestyle,
no,
and
I
that's
agree.
just facts.
It's really tough. It's a tough watch, but I agree with you. Even in folk style, like try explaining, you know, reaction time to somebody that's never seen it, right? Like we're not out of the woods when it comes to that kind of stuff with the folk style and like how important it is to this country.
Yeah,
We still got work to do there too. I think
it's pretty
there can
simple.
be
If your foot's over the line, it's 2 points when you shoot a basketball. If your foot's behind the line, it's 3 points. If the ball crosses the plane of the goal, it's a touchdown. It's 6 points.
Mhm.
If it
Can
goes to
we
the field goals, it's 1 or 3.
can we go in that direction, and what's the easiest way to go in that direction for us, right? Because like this started with the magic wand, and like that's the pie in the sky type of stuff. But a lot of what you're saying is, I think it's manageable change. I don't think it's crazy change that we're looking at.
No, I don't. And I'm also young, and I've been around, and I'm being loud about that, and I don't have a lot of solutions, so I shouldn't be that, you know. I'm probably not the best guy to take a step back and look at it and say this is how we make our sport more easier, you know, user friendly. But I think we should figure out how to have consistent scoring, and that we should find a way that it's very palatable for a random person. It took me 5 years to get people to understand wrestling in Arkansas, and they're still asking questions. So I know I'm being loud about it. I'm sorry, I don't have great answers, but I think that it would be simple to say that if you step out of the circle, you lose a point. Like that's like, I do know that that's simple. I'm not saying, like, I know that if you touch all 4 points or all 3 points, that's 2 points. That would be simple. If you go from bottom to your feet, that's a point. And if you put them on their back, you get X amount of points. I think that's simple. You know, I think I can explain that to my 6-year-old and he would love it. Right.
And he understands it and he gets it. And now he has a rooting interest in whatever. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Step out rule it's a long time coming in folk style wrestling. Get rid of stalling altogether. It's too black. It's too gray. There's not enough black and white answer to it. Just get a step out rule. That's the end of it. All right. That's it, man. Joel, do you have anything else before we go?
Neil, where can we find you?
In Little Rock, right here at the Greg Hatcher Wrestle. No, you can find me on Twitter. Just search my name. Instagram's Little Rock Wrestling Coach. If you're still old enough and you're on Facebook, you just search my name and I'm there. So other than that, you can find me in Little Rock, baby.
There we go. All right, Coach, thank you so much, brother. I really do appreciate you coming on and talking with us a little bit.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Welcome to the Athletor Podcast. What do you want to know what the top is? Right now with the project. What you want to know, man? What you want to know? Welcome to the Athletor Podcast. What do you want to know what the top is? Right now with the project. What you want to know, man?